Chapter 19 Admonishments. Once a modicum of strength returned to him, Aragon staggered out of the alley, skirting the dead monsters. He did not get far before Caddoc traded to his side. "Good, you weren't hurt," mumbled Aragon. He noticed without particularly caring that his hands were shaking violently and his movements were jerky. He felt detached, as if everything he saw were happening to somebody else. Aragon found Snowfire, nostrils flared and ears flat, against his head, prancing by the corner of a house, ready to bolt. Brom was still slumped motionless in the saddle. Aragon reached out with his mind and soothed the horse. Once Snowfire relaxed, Aragon went to Brom. There was a long, blood-soaked cut on the old man's right arm. The wound bled profusely, but it was neither deep nor wide. Still, Aragon knew it had to be bound before Brom lost too much blood. He stroked Snowfire for a moment, then slid Brom out of the saddle. The weight proved too much for him, and Brom dropped heavily to the ground. Aragon was shocked by his own weakness. A scream of rage filled his head. Saphira dived out of the sky and landed fiercely in front of him, keeping her wings half raised. She hissed angrily, eyes burning. Her tail lashed, and Aragon winced as it snapped overhead. "Are you hurt?" she asked, rage boiling in her voice. "No," he assured her, as he laid Brom on his back. She growled and exclaimed, "Where are the ones who did this? I will tear them apart." He warily pointed in the direction of the alley. "It'll do no good. They're already dead." "You killed them?" Saphira sounded surprised. He nodded. "Somehow." With a few terse words, he told her what had happened while he searched his saddlebags for the rags in which Zarok had been wrapped. Saphira said gravely, "You have grown." Aragon grunted. He found a long rag and carefully rolled back Brom's sleeve. With a few deft strokes, he cleaned the cut and bandaged it tightly. "I wish we were still in Palancar Valley," he said to Saphira. "There, at least, I knew what plants were good for healing. Here, I don't have any idea what will help him." He retrieved Brom's sword from the ground, wiped it, and then returned it to its sheath on Brom's belt. "We should leave," said Saphira. "There may be more Urgles lurking about." "Can you carry Brom? Your saddle will hold him in place, and you can protect him." "Yes, but I'm not leaving you alone." "Fine. Fly next to me, but let's get out of here." He tied the saddle to Saphira, then put his arms around Brom and tried to lift him, but his diminished strength failed him. "Saphira, help!" She snaked her head past him and caught the back of Brom's robe between her teeth. Arching her neck, she lifted the old man off the ground like a cat would a kitten and deposited him onto her back. Then Aragon slipped Brom's legs through the saddle straps and tightened them. He looked up when the old man moaned and shifted. Brom blinked blearily, putting a hand to his head. He gazed down at Aragon with concern. "Did Saphira get here in time?" Aragon shook his head. "I'll explain later. Your arm is injured. I bandaged it as best I could, but you need a safe place to rest." "Yes," said Brom, gingerly touching his arm. "Do you know where my sword is?" I see you found it." Aragon finished tightening the straps. "Saphira is going to take you and follow me by air." "Are you sure you want me to ride her?" asked Brom. "I can ride Snowfire." "Not with that arm. This way, even if you faint, you won't fall off." Brom nodded. "I'm honored." He wrapped his good arm around Saphira's neck, and she took off in a flurry, springing high into the sky. Aragon backed away, buffeted by the eddies of her wings, and returned to the horses. He tied Snowfire behind Caddoc, then left Yazawak, returning to the trail and following it southward. It led through a rocky area, veered left, and continued along the bank of the Ninor River. Ferns, mosses, and small bushes dotted the side of the path. It was refreshingly cool under the trees, but Aragon did not let the soothing air lull him into a sense of security. He stopped briefly to fill the water skins and let the horses drink. Glancing down, he saw the Razak's spoor. "At least we're going in the right direction." Saphira circled overhead, keeping a keen eye on him. It disturbed him that they had only seen 2 Urgles. The villagers had been killed, and Yazawak ransacked by a large horde, yet where was it? Perhaps the ones we encountered were a rear guard, or a trap left for anyone who was following the main force. His thoughts turned to how he had killed the Urgles. An idea, a revelation, slowly wormed its way through his mind. He, Aragon, farm boy of Palancar Valley, he had used magic. Magic! It was the only word for what had happened. It seemed impossible, but he could not deny what he had seen. Somehow I've become a sorcerer or a wizard. But he did not know how to use his new power again, or what its limits and dangers might be. How can I have this ability? Is it common among the writers? And if Brahm knew of it, why didn't he tell me? He conversed with Saphira to check on Brahm's condition and shared his thoughts. She was just as puzzled as he about the magic. Saphira, can you find us a place to stay? I can't see very far down here. While she searched, he continued along the Ninor. The summons reached him just as the light was fading. Come. Saphira sent him an image of a secluded clearing in the trees by the river. Aragon turned the horses in the new direction and nudged them to a trot. With Saphira's help, it was easy to find, but it was so well hidden that he doubted anyone else would notice it. A small, smokeless fire was already burning when he entered the clearing. Brahm sat next to it, tending his arm, which he held at an awkward angle. Saphira was crouched beside him, her body tense. She looked intently at Aragon and asked, Are you sure you aren't hurt? Not on the outside, but I'm not sure about the rest of me. I should have been there sooner. Don't feel bad. We all made mistakes today. Mine was not staying closer to you. Her gratitude for that remark washed over him. He looked at Brahm. How are you? The old man glanced at his arm. It's a large scratch and hurts terribly, but it should heal quickly enough. I need a fresh bandage. This one didn't last as long as I hoped. They boiled the water to wash Brahm's wound. Then Brahm tied a fresh rag to his arm and said, I must see, and you look hungry as well. Let's have dinner first, then talk. When their bellies were full and warm, Brahm lit his pipe. Now, I think it's time for you to tell me what transpired while I was unconscious. I'm most curious. His face reflected the flickering firelight, and his bushy eyebrows stuck out fiercely. Aragon nervously clasped his hands and told the story without embellishment. Brahm remained silent throughout it, his face inscrutable.